A date that has lived in infamy. December 7th, 1941. 80 years later, we remember the attack on America at Pearl Harbor that thrust the United States into World War II. News 3 with live team coverage across the Commonwealth. Good afternoon and welcome to this special edition of News 3 at noon. I am Todd Carrillo. We are coming to you live from our Commonwealth's capital in Richmond and the Virginia War Memorial. It was on a clear morning 80 years ago that the trajectory of America changed forever. Today, we remember that attack on Pearl Harbor that changed so many lives. We are here at the Virginia War Memorial, and if you take a walk with me, I want to show you the Shrine of Memory here. These names etched on the glass, many of them from Hampton Roads, from communities like South Norfolk, Surrey, Sussex, Suffolk, and many others, representing the men and women we have lost to conflict over the years, many of them from World War II. That, of course, was the war that the United States entered right after December 7th, 1941. I want to show you some of the video we captured just a few moments ago during a remembrance ceremony here at the shrine. You can hear the bells tolling. Each of the Virginians who were killed on December 7th, 1941, remembered at a ceremony this morning. You know, 2,400, more than 2,400 Americans were killed on December 7th, 1941, in the attack on Pearl Harbor. 44 of them were Virginians. Sadly, so many others who were called to service in the days, months, and years following December 7th have since passed on. Earlier today, I spoke with Captain John Maxwell. He is the commissioner of the Virginia Department of Veteran Services, and we talked about why it is so important that 80 years later, we continue to remember the lives we lost on December 7th and the bravery that followed in the years after.
There's a legacy that those who were there in Pearl Harbor on that day, that they have really set forth for us. Their valor that they demonstrated on that fateful day of December 7th of 1941 really showed all of us how to never give up and how to sacrifice.
And just a few moments ago, I talked to Dr. Clay Mountwell. He is the executive director here at the Virginia War Memorial. He emphasized the fact that December 7th, 1941 really reminded us that a single day can change everything. He likened to what happened on September 11th, that day being a pivotal moment for the current generation. December 7th, 1941 was that day for the previous generation. Of course, there are remembrance services happening all across the nation today in Pearl Harbor, in Hawaii, here in Virginia, and back in Hampton Roads. Let us bring in News 3 reporter Penny Commit. She is live at Joint Expeditionary Base Little Creek in Virginia Beach, where another ceremony just wrapped up. Penny, I imagine another somber remembrance there as well.
Well, Todd, you're right. Somber is a great word to describe it, but also a very beautiful service as well. And we're here at the Pearl Harbor Memorial that's on the base. And I want you to take a look behind me. See all of these names that are etched into this concrete? They are 184 names. They all represent survivors that were from right here in Hampton Roads. And if we take a look down, this is the wreath that was laid just moments ago. The ceremony wrapped up just about 10 minutes ago, but we've been here for the whole thing. So we've been here for about an hour. It started at a chapel down the street, and then it moved over here where this beautiful wreath was laid. And you're right, somber, but a great remembrance. I had the chance to speak with some relatives of survivors of that day, and they had nothing but wonderful things to say about their loved ones who, despite such a tragic event, continued serving and fighting for our country. So it's been 80 years, as we've mentioned, 80 years for grief and longing for some of the people that were here today. And I had the chance to speak with someone in particular. Her name was Susie Rice, and she was actually there. She was a little girl when the bombs dropped. I had a chance to speak with her. She takes us back to that day. Take a look.
My mother heard the explosion, but she thought it was some oil tanks that had blown up once before. But she came out to the back door and looked, and I was standing in the backyard yelling, "Planes!" And she came out and grabbed me. You could, I mean, literally, they were right above our house. That is, the Japanese were. And she ran and got my father out of bed. He threw on some pants, kissed her, and ran.
Mrs. Rice, along with many other relatives, also emphasized the importance of remembering military families on this day. As I mentioned, a lot of them, Pearl Harbor sparked a fire within them that made them want to keep fighting for their country. So many of them went to fight in World War II. She told me how her father was in a submarine back in Cleveland, Ohio, and then spent about 20 more years in the military. So not only did they serve, but those families that are here today also served alongside them. We're live in Virginia Beach. Penny Commit, News 3. I'll send it back to Todd in Richmond.
Penny, thank you. As we approach more and more years past December 7th, 1941, 80 years later now, it is becoming increasingly more important that we remember the stories of the men and women and the heroism of that day. One of the ways that is happening currently is through the naming of a new aircraft carrier that is under construction in Hampton Roads. The future USS Doris Miller is being built right now at Newport News Shipbuilding. It is named for a hero of Pearl Harbor. It is also the first aircraft carrier to be named for an African American, as well as the first to be named after a person for actions in the enlisted ranks. Doris Miller was serving on the battleship USS West Virginia on the morning of December 7th, 1941. When the Japanese attack began, Miller immediately jumped into action, rendering aid to his injured shipmates, as well as manning a machine gun and firing back on the Japanese warplanes. The first cut of steel for that fourth Ford-class aircraft carrier happened in August. And in the decades ahead, that aircraft carrier will serve as a reminder of the heroism we saw on December 7th, 1941. News 3 has been hard at work collecting all of the stories of Pearl Harbor. We've got them for you in one place on WTKR.com. You will find it on our featured coverage section of the website or over at WTKR.com/Pearl Harbor. And of course, our coverage of the 80th anniversary of Pearl Harbor will continue throughout the day here on News 3. But for now, let us send things back to our downtown Norfolk studios, where Erin Miller is standing by with the rest of the day's news.
Todd, thank you for that thorough and very important coverage. We appreciate it. Now to our other big story of the day, the major drop in temperature, which I know many of you feel when you walk out the door. We are talking about a nearly 30-degree difference for some of you, and the wind only makes it feel colder, so we can't not talk about this. Let's get right to meteorologist Maddie Kirker. Maddie, I had to have my seat warmers on and like 3 jackets today. Are things at least going to get warmer throughout the day?
Unfortunately, not much warmer than where we're sitting right now. That cold air continues to filter in across the board. So yeah, talk about a major shock to the system compared to the mid-70s we had yesterday. Here's some current conditions. We are in the mid-40s in Norfolk, just 45 degrees, 47 in Newport News, 48 in Elizabeth City. Again, temperatures not expected to budge anymore throughout the afternoon. We are watching as some clouds are streaming in from time to time, and that's kind of all we're expecting for the day today. Here's a look at your day planner. Again, your high temperature around 48, mix of sun and clouds, but overnight tonight, we are tracking an increase of clouds and we are tracking some rain. We are also forecasting a cold rain tomorrow, but could we see any snowflakes mixing in? We'll talk about tomorrow's forecast with this area of low pressure moving in and your 7-day coming up.
12:09 still to come at noon. Health experts are seeing greater rates of obesity among young adults. Why they say it could have major health repercussions. Stay with us.
Download the News 3 app for immediate push alerts and warnings when storms threaten.
'Tis the season of giving, but sometimes thieves will exploit the holiday spirit.
You look at it and you go, well, this is legitimate.
News 3 reveals the 12 scams of Christmas and how to protect yourself from charity cheats tomorrow morning.
Centera Medical Group is